Hello everyone and welcome to my top 10 horror films of all time. This isn't an objective list, this is my subjective personal favourite horror films. There is no objective list in my opinion. And yeah, these are just my top 10 personal favourites, and the horror genre has always been one that I've gravitated towards. It's sort of a go-to genre when picking a film, when watching something with family or friends. And yeah, particularly in October time, I really like to watch mostly horror films that whole month, of course, because of Halloween, but just the whole year round as well. Yeah, these are ones that I've watched multiple times, all of the films on this list. Sometimes it's not the case with like other genres that, you know, top 10 favourites. Sometimes they're only just films I've watched once, but with these in particular, with the horror films, I've watched all of these multiple times, including some of them like 5 or more times. So yeah, let's get into the list. So first of all, I'm going to just put a whole load of honourable mentions surrounding me right now. There's a lot of great horror films out there, a lot of ones that I would give 10 out of 10 even that didn't quite make the list. But you know, so it was really hard picking the number 10 one in particular. It's sort of interchangeable. That number 10 slot could be replaced with another one that was just an honourable mention for now. But yeah, so that's my honourable mentions. So yeah, let's get into the top 10. So my personal number 10 favourite horror film of all time is 28 Days Later. So this is of course directed by Danny Boyle, and it stars Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson, Naomi Harris. And yeah, for me it's definitely one of the best zombie films ever made. And it's really disturbing, this one. It's really, for some reason for me, British stuff is often more disturbing than American stuff, maybe just because I live here. And all the acting in this is very real, well, besides one character which I'll get into soon, is very real. And just the whole film is very gritty. It was shot on a very cheap camera to just sort of give it that more realistic, gritty look. And yeah, it really was influential for a lot of how horror, zombie films, are nowadays. You know, there wasn't many zombies before this film that ran in their films, so that was a really, really a scary thing that amped up the intense factor throughout the film. And yeah, it's got great characters. It's amazingly directed by Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle was one of the best British directors of all time, in my opinion. I don't think this is quite his best film. I think, personally, for me, Trainspotting is his best film. But this is, probably number 2 on his films for me. It's an absolute masterpiece, really. There's one tiny flaw, and it is, for me, unfortunately, the daughter of Brendan Gleeson's character. She does not give a good performance, unfortunately. I wanted to I was debating whether to mention this or not, because obviously she's a kid. It's easy to let it slide, but it was a really, really bad performance, unfortunately. I'm not trying to attack the actress at all, of course not, but it just wasn't a good performance. But other than that, she was still a good character in spite of the bad performance, and everything else throughout the film is so masterful that for me, I like it more than other ones that didn't quite get on the list, that maybe I would say are better films overall. But yeah, it's a very intense film. It's a very, very scary film as well. As well as being one of the best horror films of all time for me, it is also one of the scariest. The opening scene is horrifying, and it's interesting to see reactions to this film actually online, because everyone is just immediately completely horrified by that opening. It's very, very disturbing. So well done, just an incredible opening scene. And Cillian Murphy in this is great as well. It's one of his best performances in my opinion. And Naomi Harris as well is great. Brendan Gleeson's always likeable. Christopher Eccleston's amazing in this, and Ricky Harnett as well is a small role in this. I've mentioned him in a previous video on Rise of the Foot Soldier, but he's great in this as well. Just a small role, but he does it very well. But yeah, very violent film, very intense, very disturbing, one of the best zombie films ever made. And I'm really looking forward to 28 Years Later, I believe it is, because obviously Danny Boyle directed this one. He didn't direct 28 Weeks Later, it definitely was noticed. For me, I thought 28 Weeks Later was good, but nothing really more than that. It's decent. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that can be attributed to Danny Boyle not being involved with the film, but I'm really looking forward to watching 28 Years, since he is obviously directing it. I doubt it'll be as good as this one though, and that's okay, because this film's a masterpiece for me. So yeah, my number 10 slot, 28 Days Later.
The chimps are infected! They're highly contagious. They've been given an inhibitor.
Infected with what?
In order to cure, you must first understand.
Infected with what?
Rage.
At number 9 we have The Silence of the Lambs. I've got one of the best films of all time, period, really. It's an absolutely iconic film with incredible performances, and It's a great detective film and a great horror film as well. Basically, it's about a group of detectives trying to go after a certain serial killer known as Buffalo Bill, who is played amazingly in the film by Ted Levine, I believe. And he gives a great performance as well. But yeah, sorry, they're going after this serial killer, and in order to get more information on him, basically, they go to another serial killer, basically, who is also a psychiatrist, to try and gain info and hopefully take Buffalo Bill down. And yeah, it's a very investing film. It's incredibly well made. It's one that I've watched over and over again just because it's just such a perfect film, really. It's not got any issues at all. It's completely investing. All the detective stuff, which can often be a bit boring, unfortunately, in a lot of films for me, there's the detective element to certain films, but in this film it's done really, really well. And Anthony Hopkins is absolutely brilliant in this film. He's one of the greatest actors of all time, and again, one of his greatest performances. Jodie Foster's amazing in the film. And yeah, it's a very disturbing film. It's very investing. It's very entertaining as well. Yeah, and it's one that I've watched with multiple family members. It's one that I've watched many, many times. And yeah, I love the film. There's not really much I can say about the film other than it just does everything so perfectly. And it has so many great performances. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it to any film fan at all, regardless if you're a horror fan or not. A great script, great direction, and some of the very iconic scenes throughout, especially with Buffalo Bill. And yeah, definitely, just a perfect film, really. Highly recommend it to anyone.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Number 8, we have a recent one, actually, Hereditary. This film completely blew me away. I was not expecting for this film to be just a complete 10 out of 10 film for me. And one of the best films in the past 10 years, really. I mean, it's an incredible film. Toni Collette, I've always thought she was a brilliant actress. About a Boy, she was amazing in. The Sixth Sense, she was incredible in. And this, again, is a masterful performance from her. And this is one that I would say, if you're not a fan of horror films, I don't know if I'd fully recommend this to you, because it is, for me, it's one of the scariest films I've ever seen. There's some stuff in this that just will burn into your head, really, and it's a very scary, disturbing film, especially if you're sort of disturbed by devil, satanic themes, I guess. I would maybe stay clear. But for everyone else, if you're a horror fan, this is a must-watch. I don't really want to reveal too much about the plot, to be honest, because a certain thing happens sort of quite fairly soon into the film that really changes everything and completely shocks me. And then it sort of changes into not just a horror film, but an amazingly deep film full of themes that are really explored in an amazing way, in my opinion. Guilt, PTSD, they're all explored in a very real way due to the amazing performances and due to the amazing writing. It's a very creepy film throughout. It starts off scary and it builds and builds and builds into some horrifying stuff towards the end. And this sort of, as well, I would say, put Alex Wolff as an actor into the spotlight, because he gives an incredible performance here. Just very realistic crying even from him. Just everything that he does in his performance here is perfect for me. And Gabriel Byrne, even, who I'm personally not big on his performances normally, but here he gives a really good performance. It put the director Ari Aster on the map, really. Of course, it's his debut feature film. And so, every time he brought out... Well, he's only done 2 films since, but they've always gained a lot of attention, really, because of this film, because of how great this film is, because of how much of an impact it made in terms of the horror genre, really. It sort of kick-started a sub-genre of horror films, if you will. For better or worse, some films have tried to replicate some of the things that this film does, including Ari Aster's Midsommar, in my opinion, does some things, tries to replicate, or at least try and do some similar things to this film that didn't quite work out. It's a really impactful film, yeah, and it influenced the industry quite a bit, even though it's only 6-7 years old at this point. It's made a big impact in the horror genre. Yeah, terrifying film. I can't highlight that enough. I mean, obviously it's subjective in terms of what people are scared by, but for me it was a really terrifying film, and with incredible performances, as I've said, and some amazing writing and directing, and just an intense atmosphere throughout, and characters that are actually really, really interesting. I think that they sort of mess it up in a lot of modern horror. They just don't really care about the characters a lot of the time in a lot of modern horror, to me anyway, personally. But here the characters are all great, and they give amazing performances for their characters. So yeah, if you're looking for a modern horror and you haven't seen this is definitely one of my go-to modern horrors, I would say. So yeah, Hereditary by Ari Aster, an amazing, perfect film for me, and a perfect horror film, and yeah, one of the scariest films ever made in my opinion. So number 8 is Hereditary. At number 7 we have The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. The original Tobe Hooper classic slasher film. One of the first big proper slasher films, I would say. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course, introduced the iconic Leatherface. And this is a type of film that you don't really get films like this anymore, which is unfortunate in my opinion. That it has that sort of that 70s feel that just isn't replicated very often anymore, and that it feels very real, basically. It has that grit to it. It's about a group of friends that are trying to visit just basically an old house, and certain things happen. A certain group of people, with one in particular, starts to, I don't think this is a spoiler to say, starts to pick them off basically. And of course he has eventually his weapon of choice, which is of course the chainsaw. And yeah, the group of characters on the surface, you know, if you're just on the surface, they could appear quite basic, but I think they're all likeable, and you know, they again, the performances are really good for all of them as well. And yeah, it's sort of a group of people that you don't necessarily want anything bad to happen to them, which I think is again missing in a lot of slasher films today, in that they think that, or even from the 80s and as well, in a certain way it can be done well if a character's unlikable and annoying and you want to see them get killed, but sometimes it just drags the film down because of course you don't really want to be that annoyed by characters, and through the 2000s in particular it'd make the characters unbearable, so you were just begging for them to get killed off. But yeah, that's not the case here in this film, of course. But yeah, sorry for that tangent, but yeah, it's a very real feeling film. I love the way it's filmed, just the way it's shot, and the grain of the film, which is again is mainly a 70s thing. So this film really came out at the perfect time. It's very creepy. Even the opening titles, even, and the narration is just perfect. And some of one of the most iconic endings of all time. I will not show it or ruin it, but it's a very famous ending, a very famous final shot, and just leaves you feeling very disturbed. It's not overly. It was banned in several countries, but it's not like a very, very gory film. It's actually a bit more subtle, even though you do see a lot, but you don't see it in like very, very gory detail. But I think it actually makes it feel a bit more real because you're not seeing everything necessarily. But yeah, I just love the whole vibe to this film. You know, the locations of the film, the cinematography, the sunsets, you know, the lighting, and of course just the characters and, you know, the family of villains in the film are just very, again, you know, creepy and disturbing and realistic. And yeah, so I've watched this like 5 or more times probably, with, you know, family members and stuff. Yeah, must see horror film in my opinion. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my number 7 pick.
Why don't you fellas stick around here a while? The transport will be by in a little while.
Yeah, you want to get some barbecue?
Them girls now, they don't want to go messing around no old house. Best you stick around here.
Number 6 we have The Exorcist, directed of course by William Friedkin. This for me is probably the scariest film I think I've ever seen. Yeah, again, it's a 70s film, one of the best decades in cinema. But yeah, this is a film that builds and builds and has very sort of small scary moments throughout, and then the second half and final act in particular is just absolutely terrifying. And again, it feels very real, the film. Even just normal dialogue between certain characters is just amazing performances. Ellen Bernstein in this film, for me, I think probably gives one of the very best performances in a horror film. And of course Linda Blair, the young girl, is incredible as well. And Max von Sydow as the priest, who's not in it too much, but he's a very pivotal role to the film. Of course he is the exorcist, and he's a incredible actor, Max von Sydow, and he's amazing in this film as well. And Jason Miller as Damien as well is such an incredible character, one of the best characters in a horror film in my opinion, and gets quite overlooked in terms of when people talk about this film. I think he gives such a great performance, and his character is just so well written, and he has an incredible arc throughout the film of, you know, about regaining faith and stuff. Yeah, again, the 70s done an amazing job of just delving a bit deeper into characters and themes. But again, yeah, it's immersive from start to finish. It has a brilliant script and brilliant performances that just keep you completely hooked throughout, as well as just terrified of everything that's going on. Some of the images from this film, again, are just completely burned into my brain, and certain faces that appear. It is a really terrifying film. And of course the score, you know, by Mike Oldfield is one of the most iconic horror scores of all time. Yeah, I absolutely love this film. I think it's probably is the scariest film, you know, I've ever seen. And yeah, again, 70s, what a decade for film and for horror films as well. And yeah, I've seen it many times. I will see it many more times. Yeah, The Exorcist for me is just a 10 out of 10 perfect film again. And yeah, it's my number 6 slot. now we get into the top 5 on my list. A few days on, that's why I'm wearing different clothes. But yeah, anyway, so the top 5 on my list. So number 5 is American Psycho. So I was sort of debating whether to put this on the list because it is sort of a horror comedy. And I deliberately didn't put another horror comedy on this list, Shaun of the Dead, but I think the difference is this one, the comedy is a bit more of the secondary genre. Basically, the main genre I think of this film is sort of horror thriller. And that's at the forefront, and there's obviously a lot of comedy in it, but Shaun of the Dead is primarily a comedy, so that's why that wasn't included on the list, and this is. So of course, if you don't know, this film follows Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale, who is sort of a businessman who is obsessed with himself, but also has a hunger to kill people, and does so quite a few times throughout the film. This is just an incredibly rewatchable film for me, with Christian Bale's best performance, and an incredibly written satirical script, and just a really unique film that is so entertaining yet disturbing to watch. The character of Patrick Bateman is just incredible. Like, he's one of the greatest written characters of all time for me in this genre of film. And Christian Bale is just the perfect casting for the role. No one else could have done this better. He blends a certain intensity with a kind of likability and ridiculousness, and just how obsessed he is with himself. It's just absolutely perfect performance. Even the way he sort of delivers a lot of his line delivery is done in such a unique way of almost commercial-like delivery, like how he wants people to, how he thinks he should talk and how he wants people to hear him, basically, or perceive him. He talks in a certain kind of way that's really hard to describe, but Christian Bale just basically pulls it off perfectly. A lot of people in this film, they have such an obsession with their own image. Most characters in the film really have just such a huge obsession with the way they come across in their image, and it perfectly satirises those kind of people. There's so many iconic moments in this film, with business card scenes. There's so many great scenes in this film. The Willem Dafoe scenes are really amazing, and I just found out recently the unique way in which they were filmed. That basically, because he was a detective obviously, and he interviewed Christian Bale in the film quite a few times, and they basically filmed his scenes 3 times. Sort of one of them was he suspected Patrick Bateman. The other one was he did not suspect him at all, and another one was, the other way it was done was he knew that Patrick Bateman had done the killings, basically, and they sort of filmed 3 different versions of the same scene, and yeah, they were sort of spliced together in editing to sort of throw the audience off a bit, sort of keep them guessing. There's just so many iconic moments throughout the film, and the morning routine stuff is amazing. Of course, you know, it is a pretty disturbing film. The kills can be really brutal, pretty shocking. Like I said, there's a lot of satire in the film, and Christian Bale can be really funny to watch, but can also be very intense, very disturbing, very unpredictable. It's just one of the greatest performances of all time, and it's insane that Christian Bale was only like 25 when this was filmed. I mean, that's just insane to me. But yeah, I've watched this film so many times now. I've shown it to so many different people. It's in the top 100 films of all time easily. It's entertaining, it's thrilling, it's disturbing to watch. And yeah, it's one of my favourite films of all time. And yeah, it's a perfect film, one of the best of the 2000s for me. And yeah, number 5 on my list.
And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
Number 4 is The Sixth Sense, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. When M. Night Shyamalan is on top form, I think he's one of the best directors out there. And yeah, for me, it's probably my favourite film of his. For a while it was Unbreakable, but I think really this is now my absolute favourite M. Night Shyamalan film. If you don't already know, I won't go into the plot too much, but basically Bruce Willis plays a psychologist called Malcolm, who is trying to help out this kid called Cole. Bruce Willis tries to help him while also dealing with his wife, who's sort of growing more and more distant since a certain event happened at the beginning of the film. And yeah, throughout the film you feel a lot of empathy for this kid, played amazingly by Haley Joel Osment. And yeah, it's creepy, it's intriguing to watch, and it has an amazing atmosphere that only M. Night can pull off. It's hard to describe, but when M. Night Shyamalan is on top form, it's a certain kind of delicate way that he makes films, a certain kind of quiet atmosphere. Even when it's, you know, quite intense and quite scary to watch, there's a certain gentleness to his filmmaking that just makes it really quite a pleasant experience to sit down and watch the film that not many other filmmakers are able to pull off. It's a certain kind of gentle, delicate filmmaking that with a sort of quiet atmosphere at times that it's just not pulled off by many directors at all. Really, it's a very emotional film actually as well, particularly a scene with Haley Joel Osment and Toni Collette, and yeah, Bruce Willis of course as sort of main role, one of his best performances easily. I love Bruce Willis as an actor. I know he's obviously a very famous actor, he's a very celebrated actor, but maybe not quite as appreciated as perhaps he should be. I mean, I think he's a really truly exceptional actor and he's done so many incredible roles. And yeah, again, he's a celebrated actor, very famous actor, but maybe not quite as appreciated as I think personally he should be. And yeah, again, Toni Collette, mentioned twice on this list now, but she again gives an incredible performance. There's certain performances of hers, there's multiple performances that when I watch them I sort of think maybe this is her best performance, maybe this one is her best performance. You know, with this, Hereditary and About a Boy, each three of those films I'm like maybe this is her, you know, the best performance she's ever given, and it's a testament to how amazing she is as an actress really, that just I'm blown away constantly by her performances. And yeah, of course, I'm not going to ruin anything, but the twist is one of the greatest twists of all time for me. It's one of those twists that completely changes your perspective on things on rewatch. And yeah, it makes it incredibly rewatchable film. Just so many little details that you pick up on upon rewatch. But yeah, I don't want to reveal too much more about the film. I think just in case there is anyone watching this that is completely blind to the film, I think that's the best way to watch it. But yeah, another masterpiece, and for me, M. Night Shyamalan's best film and my fourth favourite horror film of all time.
I want to tell you my secret now. I see dead people.
So next on my list, number 3 is It from 2017. This was one I watched in cinemas way back in 2017, and yeah, I mean, what a film this is. I mean, it's not just a great horror film, but a great coming-of-age film that's sort of reminiscent of 80s coming-of-age films. And yeah, it's an amazing film. One of the best of the past 10 years for me. Again, I'll just sort of briefly run through the plot. Every 27 years, basically, this Finn, Pennywise, sort of haunts the town of Derry and feeds off the children in that town, basically. And yeah, in this film we follow a group of kids that name themselves the Losers Club, and they're basically one of his targets now that he's awoken, basically. So this is a Stephen King adaptation, of course, and so, you know, that alone is going to have the potential to have some amazing storytelling. It's going to be, on its own, have a really interesting story. And yeah, I think this is just an incredible adaptation of this story, basically. Andy Muschietti directs this film, did so really incredibly in my opinion. The cast of kids are great and they all have sort of their own unique traits and fears that Pennywise can sort of adapt and shapeshift and transform into things that they fear, basically. That's a really unique way this is done. And Bill Skarsgård is just perfect as Pennywise. Even his eyes are just, he does a certain thing with his eyes that he's talked about that's just really just, you know, again, not many other actors would be able to pull that off. I think he gave a perfect performance as Pennywise. Terrifying, funny at times, but predominantly very, very just genuinely terrifying. And just the way the special effects in this film are great as well. You know, certain things that he does, that he transforms into, and yeah, it's really well done. But yeah, you get really invested in these characters, and I liked It Chapter 2 as well. I know that one was sort of got mixed reviews. I really liked it personally, but this one for me, I mean, it was definitely the better of the two. And yeah, as I said, one of my favourite films of the past 10 years, really. One of my absolute favourite horror films of all time, of course, number 3 on my list. And yeah, I love everything about it. It's a really, as I said, a great horror film, but also a great coming-of-age film as well. So yeah, number 3, It.
Beep, beep, Richie.
So my number 2 favourite horror film of all time is The Shining. So this is of course directed by Stanley Kubrick, who is probably my favourite director of all time. It's between him and Steven Spielberg, really. But yeah, he's made so many masterpieces, and this is one of them for me. So yeah, Jack Nicholson is in this film, and he plays the character of Jack Torrance, and he's tasked basically with being the caretaker of a certain hotel. And so he sort of stays at the hotel with his family. Certain things are revealed about the hotel, and that's all I'm going to say about the plot. I mean, what can I really say about this film that hasn't been said already? I mean, the performances are incredible. Jack Nicholson is amazing, and Shelley Duvall as well. A lot of people say that Shelley Duvall as Wendy didn't quite give a great performance. I just can't get that perspective really. I think she gave an incredible performance. And yeah, Danny, played by Danny Lloyd, gives a great performance as well. And yeah, of course, goes without saying, it's a Stanley Kubrick film, so all the cinematography, all the framing, the colour palette, I mean, he just sort of has the best of the best in that department in his films, and this is no exception. I mean, all the reds, I mean, it's just the perfect framing in this film. It's incredible. And yeah, great side characters as well. The chef, and yeah, the waiter, Delbert Grady. He's just such a fascinating, disturbing story, this film. And of course, Stephen King book adaptation as well, so you know that it's going to have some great storytelling. But yeah, I mean, I've not read the book, but I think just the way Kubrick adapted this story worked absolutely perfectly. Of course, some of the most iconic moments in cinema are his Johnny line and stuff. And yeah, it has a really creepy score that just makes it all the more intense and scary and unsettling to watch. Even the opening credits are just absolutely perfect. Really basic font, but it just works perfectly. Kubrick has a really amazing opening titles in general, actually. And just a really, really interesting ending, intriguing ending, and a disturbing, unsettling ending. And yeah, it's a perfect horror film. I can understand why some would say this is Kubrick's absolute best. I think it's definitely up there. It's entrancing, it's really, really scary and just haunting, and it will probably stay with you for a while and leave you thinking about it for quite a bit, as do many of the greatest films. But yeah, this is just one of the greatest horror films for me, one of the greatest Kubrick films, and my number 2 on the top 10 horror films of all time.
Tony, tell me.
So my number 1 horror film of all time. Now this is sort of cheating a little bit. I'm going to be doing a double bill, basically, of 2 Alfred Hitchcock films, and that is Psycho from 1960 and The Birds from 1963. Again, I know it's 2 films, but this is my list, and I'm choosing to have a double bill of Hitchcock films at the top slot. They're so close for me, and they're obviously the same director. I just didn't really want to do 2 slots one after the other of the same director and films that are so close for me. But yeah, both horror films, both Alfred Hitchcock, and just, for me, the absolute best horror films of all time. So we'll start by talking about Psycho. I mean, of course, Psycho is such a great film, so influential. It's sort of debatable as to whether it's a slasher film, but it definitely kick-started and inspired so many slasher films after this. And of course, definitely 100% a horror film at the very least. And yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, Alfred Hitchcock, just one of the best directors of all time. And this is probably his most well-known film, I would say, at this point, to the general public. Some of the most famous scenes in cinema, really, the shower scene. I'm not going to ruin anything, but of course, certain moments in the film, they're just completely some of the most famous moments in cinema, really. And yeah, there's certain things done here in this film that, in terms of mainstream cinema, were not done too often. You know, again, we're not going to ruin it, but a certain event happens midway through the film that really changes everything. That was just really unique for the time in terms of, again, mainstream cinema. The location, of course, of Bates Motel is perfectly creepy, perfectly atmospheric. All the cinematography is just stunning, and the performances, my God, Anthony Perkins in particular, he's unbelievable in this film. All the subtle expression changes and just, yeah, he's incredible, and everyone else is great in this as well, but of course Anthony Perkins does stand out. It's one of the greatest performances ever put to film, really. Again, not going to ruin anything, but of course an iconic ending, iconic final lines. And yeah, it's a perfect film. I can't really say much more about it.
It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
And The Birds, I mean, if I really had to sort of pick which film I prefer out of The Birds and Psycho, it would probably be The Birds, in all honesty. But again, they're just so close. I still wanted to do this as one slot. But yeah, The Birds sort of feels kind of like a nightmare, in that it's just all these birds attacking you for seemingly no reason. And yeah, it's a really underrated film in my opinion. I mean, it's got great ratings, but it's not ever really, well, it's rarely talked about as one of the best Hitchcock films, but it is absolutely like top tier Hitchcock in my opinion. There's one or two really disturbing parts that will probably stick with you as well, that are really shocking and just classic filmmaking that, you know, Alfred Hitchcock, of course, is called the master of suspense for a reason. Like, this film is just so intense, so suspenseful, just so gripping. And yeah, it has that sort of, that classic movie feel from that time period of, it's sort of comforting to watch even though it's so scary and intense, and you don't really get many films like that anymore. But, you know, of course, these films luckily are, you know, here for us to enjoy forever. And the performances, again, are great, particularly from Tippi Hedren and Rod Taylor and Jessica Tandy, I believe, the actress that plays the mum of Rod Taylor's character Mitch Brenner. But yeah, there's some great character arcs throughout the film, particularly Tippi Hedren's character of Melanie Daniels and Jessica Tandy's character of Lydia. They really do change a lot by the end of the film. The romance, of course, is really charming here between Rod Taylor and Tippi Hedren's character. They have great chemistry. I love the location in this film and the geography, I suppose, of it. Basically, by the end of the film, you really, at least I did, become really attached to the location. It's sort of that feeling of you almost subconsciously know a lot of the layout of it. It's really well done and hard to describe, basically. But just, yeah, the use of location in this film is incredible. But again, and Hitchcock does this so well, the way it builds and builds and builds and gives you such a satisfying and intense final act that really wouldn't have been as suspenseful as it is without that perfect build-up. And again, it's just, Hitchcock does suspense so well, and he knows exactly how to build tension, and never ever is it boring, the build-up. It's always just sort of adds to the suspensefulness and becomes more intense and thrilling and satisfying by the final act of the film. There's also no soundtrack in this film at all. Like, there's no score, there's no music at all throughout the entirety of this film. So yeah, it sort of adds to the disturbingness and the intensity of it, the fact that there's no music. It just, I suppose, yeah, it adds to the eeriness of it all. And yeah, very, very powerful ending as well. Not maybe an ending you'd expect, but it's very well done, very powerful. But yeah, I think it's really amazing actually how they were able to do some of those shots with the seagulls, how they were able to make them work for that time. Of course, there are real elements, there are real seagulls used in the film as well, particularly with the iconic attic scene. But yeah, I think even when they do they have to do special effects for some of the shots, I think they do actually work really, really well, especially for the time. I think it was amazing how they were able to pull that off. And yeah, it's a very intense, eerie, disturbing, yet enjoyable film to watch. And again, Hitchcock, just absolute, just of course the master of suspense, he's known as for a reason. It's an incredible film. I love him as a director. He's one of the absolute best directors of all time, and he's made my two personal favourite horror films of all time. So yeah, my joint number one pick is Psycho from 1960 and The Birds from 1963. So that is the end of my top 10 horror films of all time. Let me know your personal top 10 favourites of all time. Again, this is not a objective list. There is no objective list in my opinion. This is completely subjective. But yeah, let me know yours, your favourite top 10. It doesn't have to be top 10, just maybe top 5, top 3, your favourite, whatever, you know. Just some of your favourite horrors of all time, let me know. And yeah, I'll be back soon with some more videos hopefully. And yeah, thank you for watching.